listening to the Breakfast Express, and this is the Chat Network coming to you live from our studios here in Lenasia. And our special guest, the one that we all wait for every single Wednesday, Coach Zaid Ismail. Welcome, Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing this morning?
Walaikum assalam. Alhamdulillah. Always good to be here and loving the weather. Just loving this weather.
No, like this is weekend weather. This is not weekday go to work weather. But yeah, we remain optimistic. It's fine. I will be cautious. I'll be cautious, especially when you hear I'm not using no labels. I'm not saying nothing. I just want to keep it light. But yes, today we are discussing a very compelling topic. And it's something that I feel I don't even want to waste a single second. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about this amazingly crazy trend that has taken hold of wanting to cut people off because you don't like how they treat you or what they do for you or what they're not doing for you. And especially this trend between children and their parents, but even adult children, especially in their parents.
I think this is loaded.
I think this is going to hurt a lot of people's feelings. It's going to trigger a lot of people and it's going to get a lot of people thinking yes. So I think more importantly, the whole point of this conversation today, especially today's conversation, is we're not looking to be sensationalistic. We're not looking to be controversial. We just want to question what's the true logic rationale, what's the true wisdom behind the way it is that we are being told we need to handle relationships, especially important relationships like blood ties.
Why would people cut? What are some of the justifications now for I'm cutting my parent off because? What in your experience and to your knowledge is some of the reasons that I'm cutting off my parents?
It's usually because they just have developed this perception of what toxic looks like. They're toxic, they're abusive, it was emotional abuse, it was childhood abuse, whatever it is. And there's a very critical difference between like actual physical abuse versus perceived emotional abuse. Right? And I'm saying perceived emotional abuse not because I'm diminishing the fact that emotional abuse is something that is real, but when it comes to our emotional experience of these things, we need to realize that the emotional experience is extremely subjective. It's about how we feel about something rather than what was intended towards us.
Very important.
Right? And I can tell you one thing for sure, is that even the parents who are failing at parenting, their effort to step up, that's what reflects their motives and their intentions rather than the fact that they're failing. Now, we can try and correct or advise or challenge the failures in their parenting efforts, but we can't automatically assume that they are deliberately trying to be toxic or abusive. Because, we're getting very serious very quickly, but let's just do it. The one thing that I have seen firsthand and experienced firsthand as well, and I work with a lot, I think probably 80 to 90% of my clients are focused on marital relationship issues or parenting issues, right? That's the majority of the work. And it's not by intent or design, it's just that's what seems to come to the surface more often than not. And the one thing I can tell you for certain is that the parents who are at least in their own way trying to show up, who are present in some way or another, even if they're not like present emotionally or emotionally available, but the ones who are there, who are actually still in the role and still trying to do what they can relative to what they believe they should be doing, they are always trying in their own way to do better than what it is that they thought they received from their parents. And when children grow up thinking, I'm going to show you how it's done, I want to do better than you, that's them just trying to do exactly the same thing, trying to do better than what they think their parents did for them. And that's how we end up paying it forward. And then we call this generational trauma, but it's not generational trauma. I think it's more, I'm going to get hit for this one, generational ingratitude.
I love that, actually. Generational ingratitude. There's a big gap.
A massive gap. We look back and we judge instead of looking back and seeing what was the reality within which they tried to show up, right? And I mean, we all have reason to think, well, our parents might have fallen short in this way or might have let us down in that way. And I'm not for one second making excuses for the people who don't show up, for the people who are actively and deliberately and consciously abdicating accountability in their role as a parent. I'm not making excuses for that. But even in that, there's a lot of parents who do that because they think their children are better off without them. There's very few who consciously and deliberately think it's not my problem. Their mother can take care of them, or their father can take care of them, or their grandparents even can take care of them. That's the minimum. But it obviously gets the most attention because we don't go on air to talk about what's good about society. We go on air to talk about what we need to improve as society.
Absolutely.
And similarly, in our families, we don't go and talk about everything that we love about the family unit. We're going to talk about what it is that we have concerns about in the family unit. So if we don't recognize that we're not striking a balance between what works and what doesn't work, what is it that's undermining what it is that we believe is good and wholesome about how the family should be, and we just keep harping on that only, and we don't recognize what's good about it, or you don't even like put forward a positive effort or genuine effort towards building on what's good about it, then we end up believing that no, we don't need this and we don't deserve this, and we're going to go and show them how it's done, and we're going to do better than them. And what we do in the process is, even if through some fluke we managed to do better than our parents, we also denied our parents their rights to have a relationship with their grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
And we denied the grandchildren a right to have a relationship with their grandparents, which means that you just destroyed generational wealth.
That is powerful. I think that what qualifies, I mean, generational ingratitude. If I'm just thinking now, you've got young people right now saying, my mom or dad is a narcissist. They're toxic. They don't understand the pressures I'm going through. How can they? It doesn't qualify you to cut your parent off.
I think before you even get to whether it qualifies you or not, I think let's see what is the merit with which you are judging your parents, right? Because the age-old wisdom has been thrown out,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things that comes to mind is like you don't know someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes, right? So have you walked a mile in your parents' shoes, or are you sitting there considering all the privileges that your friends and social circles and social media is telling you you're supposed to have versus what your parents are allowing you to have or making available for you, or maybe showing up the way you think they're supposed to versus how they are actually showing up in their way? Are you doing that and thinking, well, I know better than you because look, I have all of this information at my disposal, and I've got all of these examples, and I've got all of this knowledge, and this influencer said this and that guru said that? Okay, when were you a parent? And when you are a parent, the one thing that comes through extremely often is, I don't know how come, but I ended up being just like my father or just like my mother. And then we look at that and we think, okay, well, maybe we're not much better than them. No, that's not the point of it. The point is that if you realize that at some point, and this is a critically important point, like seriously important, at some point, if you realize that you are being like your parent that you thought you were going to be better than, it's not for you to judge and say, well, I'm also failing. It's about for you to reflect on your life, to understand what drove you to be like that is exactly the same pressure that they were dealing with that drove them to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it should instill empathy in us for someone else's struggle, for our parents' struggle, for their efforts, for what they were working with, what they had to rise above, what cultural norms they were fighting, what resources they had available, what opportunities they had available. All of those things has to be taken into context. And when you take it into context, then you don't judge them. You understand what is it that needs to change about the way they're approaching it so that you can work with them towards it, because now you're an adult. You're no longer the child who doesn't have a say. If you have enough privilege and opportunity to cut them off, then you also have enough capacity and maturity and resources to work with them to improve it.
And if you're not doing that, that means you've made a choice, actually.
And what is the motive behind that choice? Self-preservation. And the one thing I can tell you for certain, with absolute certainty, is that if you're into self-preservation, you will not be a good parent.
100%. I'm just hearing, I'm just hearing certain of the statements like, I didn't ask to be here.
Which one of us did?
I didn't ask to be here. It's your responsibility to take care of me. I don't owe you.
Okay, let's assume that's true. So then your parents also didn't ask to be here. So they also don't owe you. So if they do anything beyond feed, clothe, and house you, you don't deserve anything more than that. Because they're fulfilling the basics, the essentials. So every privilege and every comfort and every luxury that you get from them over and above the absolute bare essentials, what entitles you to that? And the more important part in all of this is that when you start with that mentality of, I didn't ask to be here, I want you to consider where is your gratitude that you're asking your parents to show towards you. Because gratitude is about what you take from life, what you see as value in life. It's not about whether or not someone gives you something to be grateful for. So, how many of us are sitting there being ungrateful while judging someone else for not treating us well?
I think that you are going to get cancelled. Number one, there's going to be a revolt because, I mean, we are seeing a rise in this. Where does this lack of empathy for parents come from?
You know, there's one thing that I always believe is that convenience creates ingratitude. The more convenient something is, the more we take it for granted. And to prove a point, just look at life these days. We take it for granted that if we need groceries, we can just order it on an app and it will be delivered.
Mm-hmm.
So now we don't appreciate the effort it takes to actually go out to the store and actually get something, or to put together the means and pay the cash to be able to buy that stuff, or to put in the effort to actually make sure that the cupboards are filled and the fridge has got something in it for you to be able to have. The more convenient things are, the more we take it for granted. Mm-hmm. So the more convenient it is for us to be able to have a life without having to directly, blatantly depend on our parents, because they give us access to allowances and credit cards, and they load our wallets on the Play Store and things like that, the less we appreciate them, because now it's like, I'm supposed to. You're supposed to. Yeah, look, you got so much money. Why must you keep it for yourself? I'm your child. You're supposed to be spending on me. Where's the gratitude in that?
Yeah, and actually we're seeing a rise, an increase in adult children being dependent on their pensioner parents at this point.
That's the saddest thing ever. And the thing that kills me about that is not just about the fact that the elderly person is now still continuing to have to apply themselves, exert themselves in a way that they've been doing their entire life to raise a child, but that adult person who is believing that they are entitled to that support, where's their self-respect? Where's their dignity? Where's their sense of accomplishment, that they want to believe that they are of positive consequence to the world, to the people around them? So when you sit there and you think, I'm entitled, your entitlement, whether it's justified or not, that reflects what you think of yourself, not what you think you deserve. What you think you deserve is a reflection of what you think of who you are. If you claim to deserve something that you haven't worked for, that you haven't earned, that you don't contribute towards in a meaningful way to make it possible to sustain that value or benefit that you're looking for, if you want to claim it without doing anything about it, then what does it say about you? What does it say about your integrity, your credibility, your value system?
The very value system your parents sought to, to instill in you. And it's coming to mind more and more that adult children depending on their parents, treating them badly, but expecting that level of care. And that entitlement is ruining even the shot for future generations. Their children will grow up with their defunct value system.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And then when the children grow up that way, then they look at it and they think, no, it can't be me because I did my best.
Okay.
But they don't look at their parents and think, oh, my parents also did their best. Because they're so busy in that victim headspace, believing that they're the ones that are the victims in all of this and the whole world must just make space for them. They don't recognize that their parents had the same struggle. Every one of us in our own way has the same struggle. So if we become defined by our struggles and we want the world to feel pity for us and make excuses for us because of our struggle, that's how we end up not meaning to, but we directly end up taking away from the rights that others have over us.
So I have this question, right? If your parent wanted to make your life better because they had it hard,
yes,
what's the balance there? Because they say Tough times create strong men.
Mm-hmm.
Strong men create easy times. And easy times create weak men.
Yes.
Weak men create hard times.
Yes, exactly. So where do we lose the balance? We lose the balance where, as a parent, if I say, I want to give you what I didn't have,
Yes.
am I giving you the material stuff of what I didn't have? Or am I also giving you the care, attention, wisdom, engagement, presence, emotional availability, and all of that I think I didn't have?
Mm-hmm.
Because the more you give someone something, the less you give them reason to feel dignified about it.
Okay.
The less you give them reason to develop self-respect, because that's where the entitlement comes from. And then the entitlement, that becomes something they hold on to, because without it, they don't know how they're going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how it is that they're going to get people to appreciate why it's important to them. So then they start screaming and shouting about how it is that I deserve this, and you owe me, and look how you are doing this to me and making me feel like this and making me feel like that. And there's zero accountability for their contribution to the state in which they find themselves. And that's what it comes down to, is accountability. Whether someone is fulfilling your rights or not, what is your accountability in contributing towards that cycle that you're stuck in with them? So if you're stuck in a cycle with a parent that you believe is toxic, right? Up until a point, while you're in your child years and your teenage years and that, and you don't have enough awareness and understanding of how life works, you can say you were just a child, no problem. When you become an adult, what are you doing to maintain that cycle of toxicity? How is it that you are influencing and feeding that same cycle while believing that it's not your problem? How much effort have you put into trying to understand why it is that your parent, if they were genuinely toxic, how does it actually serve them to be that way? Do you think they wake up in the morning wanting to be miserable with their children?
And I think that, too many children forget that their parents were once children.
Yeah.
And they were parented.
Yes, and I mean this conversation, I know so far we've been focusing very much from the parents' experience of children who are unappreciative or treat them badly, right? But it applies both ways, right? And one of the things that we lose sight of is that we lose sight of the fact that there's a human behind that role, both in parents and in children. We look at children and we're looking at behavior and compliance, and we're looking at whether or not they're listening to us. But we don't recognize that there's a little human in there who's trying to figure out why that all is important. And where do they fit in all of this, right? I saw a clip this morning that was really good, talking about how it is that if you're trying to raise a child to be independent, you're actually destroying their self-esteem.
Yes.
Because the more you push them to be independent, the more you're convincing them that no one's there for them. They're not worthy. And instead, if you are available to them to give healthy emotional attachment and healthy emotional availability, supporting them in figuring things out, that's what convinces them of both their ability to figure things out and the fact that they are significant.
Very important points. I don't think anything is cancel worthy. I do think that it's a conversation that our listeners are definitely enjoying. On our WhatsApp line, we've got Asma saying, Assalamu alaikum, Nazia and Coach Zaid. You are making my day better. Loving the show. It brightens up my week. We've got Mohammed who is saying, this is an excellent topic. I'm going to replay it for my children.
And then these children are going to hate me.
Yes, then we do get cancelled. But it is extremely common nowadays for children, and for what about parents who cut children off?
Parents who cut children off. I think we need to. this is a sensitive one, and we need to unpack this very carefully. Both ways. Children cutting parents off and parents cutting children. What does cutting someone off look like, right? If I frustrate myself to a point where I just can't get through to you, or I can't get you to accept that you're doing something to me in a certain way, and then I say, well, I don't want to hear from you again. That's cutting them off. You're cutting them off. You're preventing any further engagement or whatever it is, right? You're telling them, just stay away from me, leave me alone. I want to have nothing to do with you in my life. That's cutting someone off. But if you tell someone, I'm not willing to tolerate this from you anymore, and until this changes, I'm going to make a great distance between us, that's not cutting off. That's not enabling bad behavior.
Yeah, like in addiction. Many parents are encouraged to exercise tough love, to say, you will not have access to finances. You will not, only going to give you a plate of food.
Yes.
Basically, that's all until you change your behavior. I don't want to hear about
Yes.
anything. Like, you can even leave. Some parents put their children out of the house. Literally, they like leave.
And that begs an important question, right? When we have these kind of interventions or these challenges that we try to implement to say that we're going to stop this, we need to be sure that we're solving the right problem. So if you want to cut someone off, what problem are you solving?
Mm.
Right? And that reason for cutting them off, is that good enough reason to cut someone off, or is that just because you're not getting your way? Is it because they're not respecting your value system with your children, and that's why you want to cut your parents off? Are you expecting your parents to behave with their grandchildren the same way that they behaved with you? They're not your children's parents, they're their grandparents. So they're supposed to have a different level of leeway and privilege and latitude and opportunity to be able to experience their grandchildren in a different way. And that's what adds to the depth of character in children when they're growing up amongst that kind of range of emotional experiences. But now, if you want to dictate to your parents how it is that they must interact with your children, you're assuming that you raised yourself.
Mm.
So, how did you get to that point where you have so much of wisdom and so much of understanding that you can now tell the person who actually went through all the sacrifice and the trouble to give you the opportunity to develop the faculties and the sense of self and the competence and that agency to now use that against them, to judge them and to undermine them?
This is super, super important, because new age parenting is like children should be self-soothing. Children should be, you shouldn't run every time. And here comes Nani or Nana and Dada and Daddy, and they're like, no, 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 this is the way we did it. And you literally find that new age parenting belittling their good intentions. And they're like, but it used to, like, we did this with you, we did this with your siblings, and you turned out okay. So you do see that it saddens me to see how they have to shrink in the face of this approach, that don't do it this way, do it this way. Why is it now? I have another question for you. What are the circumstances that one could put boundaries, not cut off, but put boundaries with the relationship with parents? When is it too much?
That's definitely relative to circumstance,
Mm.
right? And I say circumstance because if you're living in the same physical space where the amount of airtime, the amount of exposure that the children get to you and to your parents is pretty much similar, right? Then you have to have much more important conversations about how you're going to establish consistency of the kind of messages you're giving to the kids about their behavior. But if you are the dominant influence, your children are with you a week or 2 weeks at a time before they see their grandparents, and you're worried about that one occasion in 2 weeks or a month when they were their grandparents disrupting your entire effort for the whole month, then I need to question how it is that you're establishing your credibility and your influence in your children's lives if that small disruption can upend so much of what you've done. And also, what is your relationship with your parents then? That they wouldn't want to look at why something is important to you and how it is that they might either be sensitized to it, to say, yes, okay, times have changed and I can see how what we're doing is going to be bad for these reasons, or how it is that, no, I understand what your concerns are, but hey, it's not such a big deal. Don't make so much out of it, because the more you make out of it, the more the children believe that that is an important thing. So when you start having these boundary issues and you start having this contention in the family in front of the children, or where the children can directly experience the strain that that creates, you raising them with a value system that says that that is more important than family ties.
Wow.
So our children learn about what dignity looks like, what respect looks like, what honor and what wisdom and all of that. They understand what that looks like based on how they see us approaching it, not what we tell them about it.
Yeah. So children will not do what you say; they'll do what they see you doing.
Yes, and what they assume is our reasons for doing it is what becomes their belief system. And if we're not paying attention, we're only paying attention to compliance, compliance, compliance. We're not going to recognize that they're complying for the sake of complying or to avoid getting into trouble, but their belief is not where we want it to be, their value system. And when do we discover that? When they grow up and tell us that we're toxic.
What is compliance without understanding?
It's just to maintain order.
Hmm.
Maintain social order. And there's a good intention behind it from parents' side, right? But parents don't realize this when they do this, is that if you're always focused on compliance because of the fear of what your children are going to get involved in or do, when if they don't comply, if they don't have that fear in them about it, then the moment they break that fear barrier, and in their teenage years, they're going to break lots of fear barriers, then you've lost them. You've lost influence over them because the only influence you yield is fear. It's not genuine wisdom, genuine credibility as an advisor. And that's what we lose. We lose that credibility as advisors in our children's lives, and our children lose their credibility as advisors to us about how it is that they are learning about life.
And so much is lost.
So much is lost.
So much is lost in that space. Very sad. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will keep this conversation going, because let me tell you, it is just the right conversation for this type of weather. You are definitely going to warm up. I'm telling you that. You're listening to the Chat Network. Yes, I am not alone today, and I've got the coach of coaches, man, Coach Zaid Ismail. And I'm so happy that, this topic is actually ruffling the right feathers. We are talking about how children cut off their parents. How does this even come to be? I never thought I'd have to have this conversation. Like, what does this say about the current culture? And what role does social media play in all this?
I think social media is an unfortunate echo chamber, right? We go onto social media to see what resonates with us, and we take strength from that. And if we're feeling down and out and we're feeling like there's no hope and that no one understands our pain, then we go in and we look for everything that talks about how it is that no one understands your pain, right? So when we come across people who are also frustrated in their relationship with their parents let them down, disappointed them, didn't support them, didn't give them the start in life that they wanted, or didn't show up for them the way they wanted to. And then that space that they're in when they're experiencing the emotional impact of that, they go online and they look for others who resonate with that.
Yes.
Right? And we touched on this before. It's like your vibe is your tribe. So what you're feeling, you go and look for resonance, you look for familiarity with that. And then you automatically assume, you see, it's not only me. Here's all of these people that are now supporting the fact that what I'm seeing and what I think is not my imagination, it's real. So that means I'm right, they're wrong. And it's because they're so out of touch, because, Gen X and millennials in that they didn't grow up in the digital world, and they don't understand how life is these days, and we didn't create this economy and all.
Exactly that.
Seriously?
I saw a quote that says, when you're wrong, admit that you are wrong and apologize. Don't look for quotes to support your stupidity.
Exactly. I saw one the other day, it said something about how it is that an honest man who discovers that he is mistaken will either stop being mistaken or he'll cease to be honest. Right? And that's the thing, that's your motive. Your motive is driven by what you think of yourself and how you want others to see you, not what is important to you and what stands up to your value system, right? So, yeah, the way we get to this point, with this insanity, is that we automatically assume that someone doesn't understand, because we place more credibility on our experiences and our emotional sway in all of this, because that's supposed to be honored. Honor your emotions. No, don't honor your emotions. Look at how you feel about something and see that as an indicator about why something is troubling you. If you're really impacted by something more than you expect it to be, try to understand why. Live meaningfully, purposefully, with conviction, not whimsically and wanting to have the world bend over backwards to create space for you because you got it so hard.
Yeah, you're not entitled to that.
No, you're not. And if anyone wants to claim entitlement, this is like the golden rule of life. Whether you like it or not, you can't get away from this. If you claim entitlement, you don't have a right to ask someone else not to claim entitlement. So if you claim that you can cut off toxic people, you don't have a right to complain when someone cuts you off because they think you're toxic.
And it burns when it happens the other way.
Yes.
It happens. Then it's a victim. I'm a victim. I can't believe you're doing this to me.
Exactly. And that's where our integrity is shown, right? if I have integrity and I believe that what I'm claiming is my principled position about why I'm doing this with my parents or with my children, whatever it is, then I need to hold myself accountable to the same standard when I'm being faced with challenges from others that take exception to something I'm doing. So it's not that you must now be open to agreeing to everything. But you have to consider one very important question I always ask myself is what behavior am I enabling in this? And then how you want to go about not enabling bad behavior, that how then becomes important. Am I solving the right problem by the way I'm approaching it?
I love that question. How are you solving the problem?
Yes.
By your approach. Is your approach going to solve the problem?
Exactly. And more often than not, we're solving the wrong problem. Cutting off people is solving the wrong problem. Because at some point in time, you're going to be faced with the same kind of behavior in another relationship, in relationship with your own children, with your partner. Life happens. And it's only at that point when life happens and you suddenly get hit with a realization because of the experience you have that, oh my God, that's why they were like that, or that's why they did that. And then it's too late because you cut them off and you've created so much distance that it's almost impossible to repair that relationship. Or worse, they've passed on. And now you're sitting there with regret. And then guess what? You lose yourself to that regret and the remorse and the guilt and everything else. And here's the part that people don't consider. While you're licking your wounds, who are you not showing up for? So while you're licking your wounds, your children are waiting for you. While you're feeling sorry for yourself and you think you got it so hard, so that's why the world must just understand you setting boundaries and everything else. What are you raising your children with? What values are you giving them? You're raising them to be victims.
What a culture to create.
And now I want anyone to challenge me on this. You look at this kind of behavior of cutting people off and toxic this and toxic that and all of these things. And every unpleasant childhood experience is now childhood trauma. I want you to prove to me how that is not a victim mindset.
That's a very powerful challenge. I dare anyone to take Zaid up on this one. It's not going to be me. I do want to know, though, what are the dangers? Like, they say my cut-off game is strong. Everywhere you look, they're like, my cut-off game is strong.
Yeah, and that is serving what purpose? How are you wanting people to perceive you? That don't mess with me because, I'll cut you off. Okay, so what does it say about your ability to build good relationships? What does it say about your ability to be able to see the human in someone else? To show up for someone who's experiencing a bad moment? So that means that everyone who behaves in a way that you don't quite approve of, they must be cut off. You must write them off because, no, that's not the way we do things around here.
Cancel culture is strong.
Yeah. And cancel culture, like I said, the one golden rule of life is that you don't get to say, no, the rule doesn't apply to you, it only applies to everyone else because your circumstance is different. When it comes to being human, we're all struggling with the same things. So you either see the human in the person that you want to cut off, and you approach that, and if they, and there's, I'm not being unrealistic about this, I'm not being idealistic, right? There's times when people are so hell-bent on being obstinate about not wanting to hear another side, that you have to recognize that, okay, maybe I'm not the person that they want to hear this from. And then you create distance, you don't cut off. Because you have to recognize that just because of, by virtue of the fact that you're in that role, you're the son or you're the daughter, or you're the mother or you're the father, they don't want to hear that from you. But they'll hear it from a friend. They'll hear it from an influencer. They'll hear it from the Tates of this world, and they'll hear it from the Kardashians and all of that nonsense. Because then they can say, yeah, no, I respect that source, but I'm not going to look weak in front of you. I don't want to feel corrected by you because you're going to take that as an advantage. And that's the thing. When we're more concerned about what someone else is going to think of us when we have to admit fault, we're not being honest with ourselves.
No, and then what do we solve? Now you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Right, and then you just created a new problem, right? Because then you think that that's how you're protecting yourself. Meanwhile, you just confirm that you're weak.
We're a stupid generation. We are lost. I just want, like, family values, the core values were passed down at the feet of our grandparents.
Yes.
The stories they told, the values that they entrenched. I think that this generation is truly at a loss because we are into our screens more than we are into our relationships of living people around us.
Yep.
So what is there to actually miss? What is there to actually take forward? What is there actually, like, this topic is really fueling something else. And it's actually very sad because you go, for instance, to the old age homes when we do community work, and they're like, I haven't seen my kids. I haven't. I get a call like Diwali or Eid or whatever. They'll come pick us up for the day and drop us off. It's like, we know they're busy, and you can hear it in their voice. Like, we
Mhm.
know life gets busy, but should that really be the case?
No, it just tells you what your priority is.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything is a reflection of gratitude, it's the fact that, or should I say, is a reflection of that generational ingratitude, is the fact that old age homes exist,
True.
right? Um, whether someone was not the most pleasant parent or not doesn't mean you didn't get benefit from them. And doesn't mean that they were always being selfishly, because it's their fears that got them to get things wrong. Now, when you look at it from that perspective, I always tell people to look at one simple little aspect when it comes to this sort of thing. Did your parents have a choice to do something else with their life? If the answer to that is yes, and it's always yes, because they always have a choice.
Mm.
They had a choice to either show up being bitter every day about the fact that they had to show up, or they could have not showed up at all, right? So if that was the best they could do under the circumstances, we're not condoning their bad behavior or their bitterness when they showed up. But the fact is, they still showed up. Did you have food to eat? Did you have clothes to wear? Did you have a place to stay? Were you safe? Were you generally healthy? Okay, maybe life wasn't great. Maybe it was a struggle. Maybe they were getting in their own way and they were like behaving in ways that didn't really give you a very pleasant childhood. Not dismissing any of that,
Mm-hmm.
but all of that is part of what created who you are. Now, what you take from that is what's important,
Mm.
and what you take from that is going to be reflected in how you raise your children.
It's I think there would be some people saying, but my parents were abusive. What do I take from them? Verbally, physically, what if?
Quantify abusive. What about them was abusive? Yes, physical abuse is easy to identify.
Yeah.
And even though in the early days I was part of the kind of Indo-Pak culture of giving a good spanking in time and all of that, I disagree with that, because I've realized that that doesn't solve the right problems, right? The only reason we have to get to that point of discipline is because we failed in our first years with them to establish ourselves as credible advisors,
Right.
right? So I'm not judging parents who are still inclined towards the corporal punishment thing and all of that. I'm saying that recognize that that has its place in the absence of being a credible advisor, in the absence of having credibility in your relationship with your child. That's the problem we need to solve.
Mm-hmm.
We need to solve the problem of why it is that as family members, we don't respect each other. We don't recognize each other's merit. We don't look at credibility, we look at democracy. That's the greatest farce that we have ever got now. In families, families are run as democracies. And what does democracy do? Democracy makes the most popular opinion prevail, which is what our children are doing now. The most popular opinion on social media becomes their value system that they want to now use to judge us,
Yes.
right? And the most popular opinion is rarely the correct opinion. Because as we know, the amount of people who actually think strategically and meaningfully and have leadership vision and insight and understanding and wisdom, that's the minority, not the majority.
Mm.
So if you're following majority opinion in your family unit, consider whether that is being guided by a genuine value system or is it being guided by opinions.
Very powerful question to ask. And I think, when you look at your parents and there's no empathy, and you, like I said to you, being a third person witnessing an interaction, for example, and seeing the belittling happen, and seeing someone say, I did not ask to be here,
Yeah.
so I am your responsibility.
And at which point do you stop becoming that responsibility? At which point do you have enough self-esteem, self-worth, self-respect to claim your agency and your ability to be able to create a life for yourself and create benefit for others?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm saying, victim mindset. The one thing that mainstream mental health does perfectly well is it frames you as a victim and then teaches you how to cope with it.
and makes you think that that's the empowered stance to
Yes.
take.
I'm an empowered victim. Look how I'm thriving despite being a victim.
We are a stupid generation.
You know, talking about that, I had a good dig at Gen Z the other day. You know, when we the Gen Xers, right? And I just like to do this as a dig, not because I'm really all that about Gen X, right? But as Gen Xers, we brought down apartheid. The boomers brought down the Berlin Wall, right? We didn't go and say that it's a Gen X protest.
Yes. Yes.
The Gen Zs are so desperate to be recognized for something they're doing that they're even calling the protests after their generational identity.
Yes. I think that is.
Right? And here's the thing about Gen Z, right? Yes, the world is in a crappy place. Yes, the economy is becoming more and more unaffordable. But just like apartheid was also a really crappy system, we could either sit and complain about it, which I could argue for a number of generations that's what a lot of people did, which is why it lasted so long, or we could get up and do something about it. So if you're looking around at the world and you're thinking, this is crappy, our parents failed us because look what they did to the economy and look what they did to jobs and all of these things, what are you doing about it?
Indeed.
Right? That's claiming agency.
Yeah.
That's claiming your self-respect, your dignity, your ability to be able to be of positive consequence to what you don't like around you.
Do you feel that the current generation actually wants to be of positive consequence?
I think they want to. They're just looking in the wrong place for it. You see, that being of positive consequence is what drives us. That's one need that you cannot switch off. Come from whichever background, whether it's whatever your ethnicity, your cultural background, your religious background, it doesn't matter. You want to be of positive consequence. So when you grow up into an elderly person and you're still thinking that your parents did you in, then that's you avoiding accountability for why it is that you don't feel like you're a positive consequence.
You know, Zaid, this topic is so loaded. And once again, I feel like 1 hour is too short a time for us to speak about the depth and to get to the points we need to get to. So what is your final message to our listeners this morning on this very crucial topic?
Funny enough, this is the thought that comes to mind, is that I heard someone say that throughout your life, you talk about your background. This is how tough we had it, and this is how we grew up, and all of that. And you need to realize that when you have children, you become their background. And if you don't realize that, you'll be talking to your children about your background, not realizing that that is your children's background. That you sitting and complaining bitterly about your parents and about your childhood and everything else, that's their background. So they're going to speak to their children saying, you know, when we were small, the only thing we ever heard was our parents complaining about their parents. Our parents complaining about the government and about the economy and about this and about that. And what if they actually adopt that? What if they embrace that, right? What did you just do? You just took all your futility and all your bitterness about life and you gave it as a gift to your children.
Eish.
Take accountability for that. So, yes, we might have made a lot of mistakes. Not might. We definitely make a lot of mistakes in our efforts as a parent, because here's the one thing that we need to realize. There are millions, literally millions of books written about parenting. Why? Because there isn't a book that's going to help you through it.
And then parents say, there's no parenting manual.
Yes, there isn't a parenting manual, because you are raising your children under very different circumstances to what your parents raised you. So if you can compare your efforts with your children to your parents' efforts with you, you're not comparing apples with apples. And the one thing that results in not comparing apples with apples when it comes to humans is the only outcome of that is unfairness, injustice, oppression. Because you're holding them to a standard that you don't understand. And you're judging them about something that you didn't experience.
Definite food for thought, Coach Said. It has been a pleasure as always. Our listeners have benefited and loved the topic. And I would like to thank you so much on behalf of Eastwave FM and our listeners for imparting your wisdom and making our minds elevating our thoughts. I always say that when you leave, it's like a turtle, or whatever you think you have no idea. It's like a turtle struggling on its back, like, how do I get back?
Turtle syndrome.
Yes, there we go. Now I have a syndrome. But you said it, so I'm safe. Oh my goodness. Jazakallah khair, Coach Zaid. Have an awesome
Ameen.
week, and we will be back with you next week, Wednesday.
Looking forward to it, inshallah.
I mean, so yes, guys, that is the Chat Network. Please, I need to digest everything that I have just heard because so true, so important, and I hope that you absorbed it. So you stay tuned, and obviously, Chat Network back with you with Coach Zaid next week, same time, same place on Eastwave FM.